Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Caroline Fenton and Ian are here today. Trevor Maddich will be here later today. Loaded show. I am trying to multitask. We don't often have to do this, honestly, but I am trying to multitask. I have the Vols in Texas on right in front of me. If you're looking at the stream and you see me looking down, it's because my iPad is down where I have the game on. Right now, Texas up 3-2 in the bottom of the third, and the Vols just wasted a golden opportunity. Bases loaded, nobody out. They hit into a double play. Texas gets out of the inning without giving up a run. So, again, it's 3-2 Texas. Blade Tidwell working in the third. He's walked the first runner, so he's probably not going to last very long. But let's talk about Vanderbilt. Let's start on Vanderbilt. I thought yesterday if they got that kind of pitching performance from Jack Leiter, 15 freaking strikeouts. If they got that kind of performance against an NC State team that has defied all the odds because they're not a national seed, they got smacked by Arkansas, ended up winning the Super Regional, they knocked off Stanford in the first game. Clearly NC State can play. But I still figured, okay, if Jack Leiter goes out there and shoves, Vanderbilt is going to win the national championship. I thought yesterday's game had national championship written all over. And Jack Leiter went out there and gave them an all-time performance. That's the kind of game that if Vanderbilt had just found a way to get one or two measly runs, the third best hitting team in the SEC, if Vanderbilt had found a way, we would be talking about that Jack Leiter performance all day today, and probably it would be referenced as the new well. Remember Jack Leiter's game against NC State? And Vanderbilt could not get it done. Now, I think there were a couple things at play here. See, a lot of people got mad at me on Twitter on Sunday when the Vols left all those runners on base and struck out in big moments, and I said the Vols have nobody to blame but themselves. And everybody said, well, when you lose, that's who you're supposed to blame. First of all, that's not how this works, especially with the University of Tennessee. We know they like to blame the refs a lot. We know they like to blame old coaches a lot. There's always somebody else to blame at the University of Tennessee other than themselves. That's neither here nor there. I can't look at Vanderbilt today and say, bad game, Vanderbilt. Now, I thought they gave away too many at-bats. I mean, it felt like too many times, just 3 up, 3 down, back to the dugout goes NC State. And, Caroline, you and I were talking about this before the show. It feels like momentum in college baseball is more important than anything else because, quite frankly, the players really aren't that good. You know, this isn't like college basketball where there are guys playing that could legitimately be starters in the NBA right now. There is nobody in college baseball, with the exception of maybe the 2 pitchers at Vanderbilt, that could go into a major league game right now and probably hold their own. I mean, I literally think both guys could pitch in the big leagues today. Rocker probably in relief. I think Leiter could start, though he'd have to be out before the third time through the order. But there's nobody that's that good. Momentum in Major League Baseball, not that big of a deal. Because you're down a run, well, you're going to get another crack at it at some point where it's Ronald Acuna Jr. or Fernando Tatis Jr. or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Am I leaving out any juniors?
They sound like most of the juniors.
Ken Griffey Jr.
There you go.
Okay, so you're going to get a chance where one of those guys comes up, and the momentum's not really going to matter because that guy's so good he can launch the ball at any point, anywhere, and just totally change the momentum of a game. These relievers in the big leagues are so good that they can come in and get out of huge jams. Momentum in college baseball is big. And Vanderbilt offensively yesterday never got any momentum. Now, there's 2 things that play with this. One, we got to credit NC State. I mean, again, I'm used to a Tim Corbin team going up there and battling in the box. You know, they are not going to just go up 3 pitches right back to the dugout. I mean, they're going to make the opposing pitcher's life miserable. And I didn't see enough of that from Vanderbilt. You know, I'm used to the guys like Ryan Flaherty, you know, the Tim Corbin kind of guys that literally will try to work a 13-pitch at bat. And I didn't see that yesterday from Vanderbilt. They had big opportunities. Dominic Keegan, once again, a no-show for Vandy at the College World Series. So I was disappointed by that. But we got to credit NC State. I mean, it's not an accident that NC State went on the road in the regional, won that, went to the number 1 school in America and beat them in the super regional, and then went through Stanford and Vanderbilt as easily as they did. It's not an accident. That NC State team is A, legit, and B, they're very well coached. I mean, throughout their lineup, everybody's a threat. Leiter was outstanding with 15 strikeouts. NC State put pressure on him. I mean, outside of the long bomb, in which, just like Kamar Rocker, he got a fastball up, and this tournament is a very unforgiving sometimes. And Leiter makes a big mistake, game's over. But they put pressure on Leiter. They put more pressure, in my opinion, on Leiter than Vanderbilt put on NC State. But you got to give NC State credit because those pitchers were hitting the outside corner. Everything Vanderbilt made contact to was right at a guy. And that tells me that somebody's got a pretty good scouting report because that's the plan. We've turned baseball into this society where everybody wants to strike everybody out. That kid from NC State yesterday was not trying to strike everybody out. I mean, sure, he got his fair share. It wasn't like Jack Leiter, who was just rolling through everybody. But they were pitching to contact, and he had a defense that made plays. First play of the game, and Ricky Bradfield Jr. lays down the bunt. I thought for sure when I saw that ball kick back into fair territory, I thought for sure Bradfield was going to be safe. Incredible throw to get him. And all of a sudden, it just felt like NC State got some confidence. They got the one run they needed. So you got to credit NC State. I am not here today to just dump on Vanderbilt, though I do feel like perhaps Vanderbilt's chances at the College World Series might not be very good. I heard them again today, and we've talked about the losers bracket at length. I heard today on the morning show they were talking about, Vanderbilt's 2 championships, they never lost in that first regional part of the College World Series. And that's because you can't, because it is a death sentence. It is going to be so hard for Vanderbilt to get out of this. They have to win on Wednesday. Then they have to win on Friday. Then they have to win, I believe, on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, a win on Wednesday at least gets them
to Friday.
Right.
But, I mean, you got to win 3 games. You win last night, you only have to win 1. Now you win 3. It's a very unforgiving tournament. So I think when I go back to yesterday's game, Leiter was outstanding. Vanderbilt did not hit. And when I say hit, I mean, we can all watch, balls go off the wall or balls leave the yard or things like that and say, great hitting. But when I watch baseball, I want to see the approach of the at-bats. And I just thought Vandy, for a Tim Corbin team that wants to work the count, that wants to get runners on base, use their speed, put pressure on a defense, I just felt like they gave away too many at-bats last night. But again, credit NC State. They're obviously legit. I know they're not a national seed. I know they haven't been to the World Series since 2013. They're obviously pretty good. Like, that's how I feel about the Phoenix Suns. They're obviously pretty good. Nobody sat there before the season and said, hey, who in basketball is going to win the NBA Finals this year? Nobody raised their hand and said the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are pretty good. And I look at NC State last night, and I'm like, they're pretty good. We need to give them credit. The third thing about last night's game, that umpire was terrible. And we see this with guys that are effectively wild, where batters are so afraid to get hit that they're nervous up there at the plate so that when the guy does throw a strike, they react late, and it's hard for them to make contact. The guy that you're a little worried about, they call that effectively wild. That umpire last night, his zone was everywhere for both teams. And it was so inconsistent that those kids would go up there and they would not know what they could possibly swing at. It's like, do I swing at this? It's like a foot off the plate, but he just called it on the last guy. So I guess I got to swing at it. And then you take it, he calls ball, and it's like, phew, oh, goodness. Dude, thank you. And I mean, you and I were talking about this before the show. The umpiring in the College World Series has not been up to par, at least behind the plate. And I felt like last night, Vanderbilt, again, a very methodical. They really, they study their at-bats. They're very regimented. I felt like Vanderbilt was thrown off by the inconsistency of the zone. I didn't think the zone was like a pro NC State zone, but the inconsistency of the strike zone throughout the night was an issue for Vanderbilt. But I look at it and I think, man, Vanderbilt got the start they had to have from Jack Leiter. They didn't get the start they needed from Kamar Rocker. They found a way to win. They got the start they needed from Leiter, and they couldn't capitalize on it. And I think that this is where you look at Vandy and you say, okay, like now we're really going to see if you guys are as good as everybody thinks. Because I heard Darren McFarland today say that he thinks Vanderbilt is the best program in the country. And you can think that, and I'm not saying Darren's wrong, but I disagree. Vanderbilt's won 2 national titles. There's nothing to scoff at, but we don't consider Villanova the best basketball program in the country. So, like a team like Texas or Florida or the teams that go there consistently and win it more often than Vandy, I'd say, yeah, well, maybe we should think about them as the best program in the country. But if you're the best program in the country, you are not dependent upon 2 players. Alabama football is not dependent upon 2 players. Alabama football, let's take this year's team. They could lose Devontae Smith, and they'd still beat Ohio State. They could lose Najee Harris. They could lose Mac Jones, and they'd still beat Ohio State. They'd still beat Clemson this year because they're that good. That is what a great program does. So here's Vanderbilt now. Facing elimination, they have to win 3 in a row in order to get to the College World Series final. And then once they get to the final, it's going to be all mixed and matched because it's going to be, let's say Vanderbilt gets there. It's going to be, Rocker's going to have to throw in this thing. Leiter's probably going to have to work out of the bullpen at some point in this thing. And so you're talking about Riley and Little and guys like that who are going to have to pitch tomorrow night. So, they are going to have to gum it up. And the truth is if it's Patrick Riley tomorrow night, and I think it will be, or if it's Christian Little, you're going to have to hit your way out of this. Like, you can't go up against NC State, score 3 runs, and expect to win. You can't go up against Stanford, score twice, and expect to win because you're not throwing Kamar Rocker and you're not throwing Jack Leiter. And you've used Maldonado, and you've used McIlvain, and you've used Murphy. And so this is where it gets like all Johnny Holstaff now. Everybody out there. So if Vanderbilt if they really are the best program in the country, then you got to have the depth to be able to win this thing. Before, you didn't need the depth. If you got the starts from Rocker and Leiter, you need to find one way to win another game, and then you could turn it back over to Rocker and Leiter. Now you can't. We even were talking to Kevin Ingram yesterday. Okay, let's say Rocker and Leiter win games 1 and 2, like Vanderbilt won game 1, they win game 2. They could have come back with Rocker on Friday, clinch their spot into the final, Leiter game 1, Rocker's probably ready for game 2 or game 3. So they literally could have won just by pitching those 2. Now they have to win at least 1 game without either of them. And then they'll probably have to win another game because I doubt Jack Leiter will throw 120 pitches on a Monday and come back on either Saturday or Sunday. So if you are the best team in the country, if you are the best program year in and year out that everybody looks at and says, who's the best program in college baseball? If you think the answer is Vanderbilt, and the answer could easily be Vanderbilt, I think it's a very subjective question. You can make a case for Virginia. You can make a case for Florida, who's not in the College World Series. Texas, TCU. There's a lot of schools in college baseball you can make this argument for. LSU has a great baseball program. If you're the best program in the country, you got to have the depth to get yourself out of this. But it's not the situation the Vols find themselves in, but it's pretty bad. And that is why I keep telling people, don't get caught up in double elimination, because it is a very unforgiving tournament. Jack Leiter made 1 bad pitch last night. He threw 120. He threw 1 bad pitch last night. And now Vanderbilt's going to have to rely on the rest of their pitching depth. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get Caroline's reaction to all of this. Again, Vanderbilt now into the loser's bracket, just like the Vols, who are trailing Texas 4-2 in the top of the 4th. They've got a runner on with 1 out. And Tennessee is going to need to get the bats out and probably need to get the pitching going. But again, it is now win or go home for both Vandy and the Vols. 615-737-1025. And I've already written the Vols off. Now, I'm watching this game, and I want the Vols to win, but I've already written the Vols off. Do we think Vandy's done? We'll discuss next. 615-737-1025. We are live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 1025 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app and, of course, streaming on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, you name it, we're there. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Swinging 96. Strikeout 14. He leaves him loaded. That's strikeout number 15 for Leiter.
We lost 1-0. It was a hell of a pitch game by both parties. Jack was outstanding. He was just so good in so many different ways. He attacked. He threw strikes. Commanded the ball. He just did everything he could to put his team in a position to win. Highfield was good. You have to give him a lot of credit. We just never got to the barrel. Just didn't have any base runners. So that's it.
Tim Corbin, kind of telling it like it is. He was good. They didn't get to the barrel. They didn't get any base runners. They didn't battle. Vanderbilt loses. Caroline Fenton, your reaction to last night's game and this question for both you and the callers and texters, 615-737-1025. Is Vanderbilt done? They have to win 3 in a row in order now to get to the College World Series final. Are they done? Your reaction?
Well, my first reaction to the game last night is if I am anyone else who was at the plate batting for Vanderbilt last night, each and every one of them owes Jack Leiter an apology. Because Jack Leiter played his heart out last night. And I think you talked about this last week, that Vanderbilt had a sign of a good team and that they started slow, Kumar Rocker didn't have a great start to that
Sure.
game, and they found a way to win. I think another thing that we saw from Jack Leiter last night was he got himself in an uncomfortable position, was able to get himself out of it. He had the bases loaded with one out. He was able to pitch his way out of it. I think that is a sign of a guy who is mature, who has been there, and is able to stay cool under pressure, and I think it's something that we didn't just see from Drew Gilbert. Bases were loaded, no outs, and he got a double play. I think he was just swinging at anything and everything because he wanted to get a grand slam so bad. He wanted it so badly that he wasn't able to just step back and breathe and take the pitches that would have put his team in the best possibility to swing at. So I think that we saw a little bit of a difference there whenever they were put in big-time positions. So Jack Leiter, just had one heck of a game. And if you weren't giving NC State credit before last night, give credit where credit is due, because they are a darn good team. Kevin Ingram said it yesterday. Just because they're not a national seed doesn't mean that they're not a great team. They had a slow start to their season and then ended up playing really, really well toward the end of the season. Do I think that Vanderbilt is done? They're going to have a really, really tough test against Stanford.
It's a binary question, yes or no.
I think they're done.
I think they're done too.
I think they're done.
I think they're done. By the way, Tennessee RBI base hit. They've tied it at 4 in the top of the 4th with Texas. I think Vanderbilt's done.
Just with the pitching options that they don't have, you don't feel good about it.
And again, this is why it's an unforgiving tournament. Here's Texas, the number 2 team in the country, one of the best pitching teams in America. And they strike out 21 times against Mississippi State. Now they're playing Tennessee. They're already in their bullpen. So this great pitching team in Texas has already lost with their ace. Now their number 2 guy is out after 3 in the 3rd, and they've already given up 4 runs to the Vols, who are the 3rd best team in the country. It is a very unforgiving tournament. I keep saying this over and over again, and I hope people understand it, but this is a very unforgiving tournament for Vanderbilt, and they had to win this one. They could have won this one, lost in the next game, and then been able to come back with Rocker if they wanted to, on Saturday or Sunday or whenever that game would have been. Now you almost have to bank on Kumar Rocker getting the ball to get you out of this mess after you have to win one tomorrow night with Patrick Riley probably pitching. Then you have to bank on Rocker getting you out of it, and then you may not come back with Leiter. Now, I have a couple of thoughts on Leiter. One, and Joe Rexrow was talking about this today on the morning show, and every now and then, with a guy like Joe, and I like Joe, but Joe's only been here for 5 or 6 years. And every now and then Joe starts saying stuff that pops into my head like, Joe's only been here for about 5 or 6 years. Because Joe was talking about, I don't think Corbin would bring Jack Leiter back after throwing 120 pitches. I don't think he'd bring Jack Leiter back on Saturday or Sunday. And I'm thinking, Tim Corbin once started Mike Minor in a regional on a Friday afternoon. I believe it was against MTSU. And they lost. And he came back with Mike Minor as a starter on Monday night. So he went with him on Friday, gave him off Saturday and Sunday, and went back with him on Monday. Joe's like, is that true? Because it seems so wild. And this is the one thing I hate about the College World Series. And I'm just going to complain about this, and people are going to get mad at me, and I already know how it's going to work. But these college coaches, we were talking about this yesterday. Alabama football it's amazing how much people care about Alabama football because it is minor league football. Mm-hmm. And college baseball is not even really the minor leagues. But these coaches always pretend like they care about the best interest of the player. And then they don't. No. Jack Leiter threw 120 pitches last night. 120 pitches. Let me ask you this question. If Jack Leiter is in Double-A, and it's a big game in Double-A, you think Jack Leiter's pitching 120 pitches?
No.
If Jack Leiter, let's say Jack Leiter goes 3rd overall. Let's say he goes 4th overall to the Boston Red Sox. And so he's in Pawtucket a year from now, AAA. And he's pitching for the Pawtucket Red Sox. You think he's going 120 pitches?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Well, is he pitching for a championship?
He could be pitching for the AAA championship.
No, he doesn't.
Okay. That's the thing. So yesterday I'm watching the game, And I see Leiter go back out there with 109 pitches, and I'm like, what is Tim Corbin doing? And this is not a Tim Corbin thing. This is a college baseball thing, where if Jack Leiter gets drafted 3rd overall and goes right to high A and blows his elbow out there, Tim Corbin's going to feel bad for Jack Leiter, but Tim Corbin's not going to feel bad like Tim Corbin did anything wrong. Because with all these elbow injuries and everything else, you can't really point to one person or one time and say it's irresponsible. But I tweeted this out yesterday, watched the game, like 120 pitches? Like, maybe, take the kid out? Oh, boy, Twitter got mad. Oh, Twitter got mad. Then I saw Keith Law, who was a longtime ESPN he used to be a scout, and then he was ESPN's, top amateur, the Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN for baseball. Then he left and went to The Athletic. And as I'm getting all these Vandy fans and everything tweeting me Tim Corbin is the most respected coach in the history of baseball, and Tim Corbin would never, ever, ever. I see Keith Law tweet out 115 pitches and counting for Leiter. These amateur guys are keeping track of this. I remember when the Tampa Bay Rays had the 1st overall pick, and they were going to pick David Price. David Price started on a Friday and came back, I believe, on a Monday or Tuesday. And Tampa Bay, behind the scenes, was not happy that they brought David Price back out there. Now, sometimes I think we baby pitchers too much, where it's I just don't feel like we should throw the guy more than 90 pitches. Or I think it was Washington one year was really good, and they shut Steven Strasburg down because, nope, he's got his injury limits, and we can't pitch him. And then a year later, he popped his UCL anyways. So I think there's a lot of that goes on. I get it, whatever. But, Jack Leiter is a healthy 20-year-old. Take him out of the game. He's throwing 120 pitches. And that's just one little beef that I have with college baseball. And it's not a Tim Corbin thing. People are going to think that it's a shot at Corbin. It's not. It's a shot at college baseball. It's one of my big issues with the sport is that you're going to run a kid like that out there and have him throw 120 pitches. I asked my buddy who pitched in the big leagues, who pitched very well against Tim Corbin in the NCAA tournament, and I texted him last night, and I said, do you have a problem with Leiter going back out there at 109 into the 8th inning? And he said, that's a tough one. He goes, that's a tough one because he's probably built himself up this year, so from a durability standpoint, he feels like he's got the stamina to do this. And he's probably telling Tim Corbin, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I got you. But the thing about pitchers is you got to take them out. They're not going to take themselves out. So that bothered me last night. Again, it's not a Corbin thing. It's a college baseball thing. But, boy, I watched Jack Leiter and just the electricity that came out of his fastball. And I think Jack Leiter, I said it earlier in the year, and I thought maybe I overstepped a little bit when I said, I think this kid can pitch in the major leagues right now. Yesterday, again, he's not going to go 8 innings and give up 1 run if he were to pitch in a big league game. I think you could give him the ball today, though. Now, it'd be tough, but I think you could give him the ball in a Major League Baseball game. If he gets drafted by a team in contention, and I have no idea what the draft order is, nor do I have any idea what the standings are going to be come August, if I didn't have a bullpen, I'd consider it. I'd consider it. If I didn't have a bullpen, I'd draft a Jack Leiter. I'm the Red Sox, who I think are in contention right now. I think they have a decent team, and I'm in contention in August, and I need an arm. I'd think about using Jack Leiter. He's that good right now. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. We'll get to your texts. We'll get to your thoughts, your Vandy thoughts, 615-737-1025. And there's one thing, though, about watching the College World Series right now that kind of depresses me. Sean Hunley is in for the Volunteers. They're tied at 4 with Texas, 4-4 in the bottom of the 4th. Texas has the leadoff runner on by a walk. Caroline, you know what they say about leadoff walks. They always come back to bite you.
Always.
Do not walk the leadoff man. So that's the situation there, and we'll have full reaction to that game when it's over as well. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Let me tell all of the fine folks out there, ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in tomorrow night as Nashville SC returns to Nissan Stadium to take on Toronto. Pregame starts at 7:15. The match begins at 7:30. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
mean, it's a one-game tournament anyway. It was North Carolina State today. It'll be Stanford on Wednesday. We just got more free baseball. That's fine. And what happens is more people get pulled into the fray, which is good. I mean, we brought 27 people. We're going to have to use them. But what Jack did is he preserved a pitching staff. He was able to, finish the game. So from that vantage point, it's good because he kept the bullpen down and he kept other people down. So, we're just going to have to use our roster, and that's fine. We've been in situations like this before, and we've played tough baseball, and we do have a resilient group, and you need to be when you come here. Everything's not going to go your way, and there's been a lot of people that have finished this tournament that didn't start the way they wanted to.
That was Tim Corbin, and I got to give Tim Corbin credit because he really spun it real quickly of, hey, Jack preserved the pitching staff. Hey, everybody we brought them here for a reason. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. And I've always got this thing on me where I'm always like, when I watch games, I think this goes back to like my days working in women's basketball. But like I'll watch a Titans game, something bad will happen. I'll watch, a basketball game, my team, something bad will happen. Something will happen, and I literally every time, I think Tony Vitello is just about to get kicked out of the game. We'll see. But we'll keep an eye on it. As Tennessee is still tied 4-4. But a runner was, I think they called or catcher's interference or, I don't know, something.
I do not want to be on the receiving end of a Tony Vitello rant.
I guess he didn't get kicked out. But
good.
One thing that I always used to do is I used to be the guy that was always, hey, we're okay. We're okay. Down by 3, 7/10 of it. Hey, we're okay. We're all right. And it's just like a natural thing for me. Just to be like, I will watch a Titan game, and it'll just be me and my dad or me just watching the game. And it'll be like, and it's completed to T.Y. Hilton, and it's a gain of 47. I'm like, hey, okay. Everybody's okay. It's okay.
We're good.
It's all right.
We're
It's all
good.
right. Yeah, it's all that kind. To the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong about this because I haven't looked it up or anything. This is just off the top of my head. I think one time Tim Corbin has found himself in this situation and gotten out of it. And that was 2010 in a regional. I'm thinking back like in 2007, they're the best team in the country. They had David Price, they had Ryan Flaherty, they had Pedro Alvarez, they had Dominic De La Osa, and they played a game against Michigan that they lost. Mike Minor pitched, and they came back through the losers bracket and got to the winner-take-all game, and they lost it. David Price was the losing pitcher. They lost. In 2010, they beat, I believe, Illinois State or Indiana or somebody. They beat them in the first game, then lost to Louisville, then came back and beat Louisville twice. And when they did, they had Richie Goodenow and Grayson Garvin, or Garvin Grayson, or I can't even remember the guy's name. Those were the two guys that got him out of it. Richie Goodenow never pitched at Vanderbilt. He starts in an elimination game in the regional, gets him out of it against a national seed on the road, gets him out of it, and then after the season's over, transfers to Lipscomb because he wasn't going to pitch at Vanderbilt. So, that's what they're going to have to do in order to get back in this. But Tim Corbin says, hey, a lot of people have been in this situation. The studies will show, Tim, that generally speaking, you need to win those games. And I am now looking at the Texas-Tennessee game. Runners first and second. It's tied 4-4. Tony Vitello is on the field talking to an umpire. Another Tennessee coach, he's definitely gotten kicked out of the game. And there's a Tennessee staffer with a lanyard credential around his neck who is bringing the Tennessee coach back into the dugout. So I already asked today if we could use the ESPN thing and do some live look-ins, and I was told no. But gosh, I'd love to live look into this right now. Tony Vitello is screaming at an umpire right now. And now an umpire is telling the other umpire, hey, it's all right, cool it. And so now Vitello's still out there. Throw him out of the game.
He did get tossed.
He did?
Yep.
Okay. And look, I like Tony Vitello, and I'm the kind of guy, I get to a point, though, where it's like either get in the dugout or just get out. Just go. So once he turned back around, whoever 23 is, I guess he's like the pitching coach or something, he's definitely out because he threw something on the field, and he's arguing balls and strikes, so he's got to go. Oh, yeah, he's gone.
Apparently an assistant coach is yelling expletives.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's got to go. Then Vitello came back out, and I'm guessing Vitello is getting kicked out of the game too. I think Vitello already got kicked out, and I think Vitello came back onto the field. It's crazy. We can't hear what's going on. So, Ian, we're going to have to put you in charge of following this.
Yeah, I'm trying here. I think he was the pitching coach number 23 threw his little binder there.
He threw it on the field.
Yeah.
Vitello is still on the field.
What are they so mad about?
I think
Pitcher's
it was
interference?
I think it was a called ball or a called strike. They didn't like the call there on a walk, it looks like.
This is one of these things, and I'm not a big, parent step in.
Uh-huh.
Like in radio, we have it where the program director walks into the studio. And, I mean, that is like legitimately – now, it doesn't matter to me. Ryan walks in the studio when we were there all the time. But it is legitimately for the program director to be considered like a last resort.
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering if Danny White needs to get down to that dugout. Because if it gets bad, and obviously every single person whose opinion matters is watching this game as far as discipline's concerned, you could win this game and be without two coaches. And I've seen it happen. So I'd be careful. And I get standing up for your players, but it's another thing when you now become the game. And I think that takes away from your players when you do that. So the
players need your presence in the dugout, especially when they're going to be. It kind of looks like it's going to come down to the wire.
If I'm Danny White, I think I'm going down there because I got to make sure Tony Vitello. If my team wins, I got to make sure he's coaching on Thursday. Let's go to your phones though, as promised. 615-737-1025. We will keep following all of that is going on. Again, it is 4-4 in Omaha, Tennessee, Texas. Texas has runners first and second with one out here. Let's go to Billy, who's going to kick us off. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Billy with his thoughts on Vanderbilt. Go ahead, Billy.
Hey, guys. Appreciate the conversation today. I don't call a whole lot, but I thought I'd get into this conversation. First of all, a terrific game last night. And I'll say something that has no place in sports, but when you think about who deserved to win that game last night, I mean, NC State, I watched the game as a Vandy fan, and, almost from the first play at third, the kid made it NC State. I started thinking, wait a minute now. And I really thought NC State deserved to win that game. Now, as a former umpire that did anything from travel ball up to SEC conference stuff, I have to say that, Jared, your conversation briefly about the umpire strike zone was it was out there, because I think you have to be honest and say, if you're going to say that strike zone in the upper quadrant was non-consistent, I would agree with you there to a certain extent. However, those calls went much more against NC State than they did against Vandy.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I do not think that I'm not doing, and you would probably agree with me that there's a lot of times where it's like, the umpire, the referees screwed us, that's why we lost. I'm not saying that. I thought the inconsistency of the zone last night affected both teams, but especially the way Vanderbilt approaches hitting. And I think they were concerned, like there were pitches that they saw were out of the zone, but they did not. I felt like I could see the players felt like they did not want to go out of the zone to fish for it, but felt like they almost had to.
Well, and I'll give you this too. They often showed that the ball that was about one ball on the other side of the plate that umpire was not giving. Hey, I'm telling you something. In college baseball, that's a strike almost 100% of the time. If it's about a ball off the plate, both teams expect that to be a strike, and he didn't give that. And you did make a fantastic point. It wasn't against Vandy or NC State. It was both sides. But at the end of the day, I just thought it was a terrific game.
It was a great game. And to your point about giving is I think you have to give NC State credit. Like, I'm looking at this, and I'm giving NC State credit because, they're good. Like, they are legit, and this is what makes it even harder as we talk about whether or not Vanderbilt still has a shot, is the fact that Vanderbilt's going to have to beat that team twice. They're going to have to beat Stanford, then they're going to have to beat that team twice. That is a tall ask. 615-737-1025. We'll go to your text on this, and we will figure out how Tony Vitello is apparently still in the game.
Yes. To clarify something I said earlier, Tony Vitello is still in the game, but an assistant got thrown out. Threw a binder, was throwing expletives. He's out.
How is Tony Vitello still in the game? Throw him out. And, I'm a Vitello fan, and I'm rooting for the Vols today. I am a Vitello fan. But dude comes out on the field every game. throw his ass out. Like, it's one thing for you to come out one time. You know, I think we see this in baseball, right? Umpire takes a mask off. Hey, that's enough. But then once the guy,
when he comes back,
once it's another, once
the hat flips around back.
Once I've said that's enough and you come back for seconds, see ya. I mean, just what a, I mean, and I think Vitello, and these, like, I've worked for a guy who was at this point in his career, young coach, who was having success. And there is some sort of like, there's kind of an arrogance to it. Like, I've seen this from multiple coaches. And Tony Vitello is a lot like this. I mean, there's nobody in that dugout that's going to tell Tony Vitello to pipe it down. There is nobody in that dugout that's going to look at him and say, hey, cool it. And sometimes you need that. Because I've been in that where I've seen a coach I was working for who has a lot of the same characteristics as Tony Vitello. I thought he was going to fight a referee one time, and I'm like, okay, at what point do I literally grab this man back? And I think every team needs somebody like that. I think if I was a head coach, the first thing I would do is I'd get somebody in there that can literally say, hey, cool it. I think everybody needs that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Texas, meanwhile, is lacing a ball into the gap. They'll bring in one. They're going to send the second runner, throw to the plate. I think he's safe. All right, if Tony Vitello didn't get thrown out, he's getting thrown out now.
He's getting tossed.
If he didn't get thrown out now, I think the kid may have gotten in under the tag. But it's 6-4 Texas. I'm sure Tennessee's going to want to review it. And again, I'm sure we'll see Tony Vitello here. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in tomorrow night as Nashville SC returns to Nissan Stadium to face Toronto FC. Pregame 7:15. The match begins at 7:30. So this is just me. I thought he was safe. It was bang, bang at the plate. They called safe. Tony Vitello, who has really, walked the line on getting kicked out of this game. Vitello came back out of the dugout after the review. Now, the rule in Major League Baseball, and I don't know the rule in college baseball. The rule in Major League Baseball is if you argue with a review, you are out. Like, you are gone. And but Vitello didn't do a lot of arguing. He just stood there. But it looks to me like Vitello is getting pretty close to getting run out of this game. And they've already had, I think the pitching coach has already been kicked out of the game. Troy Tulowitzki, who is the volunteer assistant for Texas, has already gotten warned in the dugout. So we got umpires,
they're off the rocker.
It's apparently something. We're taking your thoughts. We will react to the Vols game when the game is over, which the pace of this game is probably going to be a while. We will react to it, though, when it is over. Let's go to your text line, 615-737-1025. Caroline, what's in there?
Texter texted in and said Vandy is not the best team. They limped their way in. This is like the Predators making the playoffs. It's going to take luck to win this.
So I don't think that's the case. Vanderbilt's the number 4 seed in the tournament. They have one guy injured who pinch hit last night, Tate Colwick, and they have a 360 cleanup hitter. They've got the 2 best pitchers maybe in the sport. I think it's very different. I mean, again, going back to last night's game, and it's one of those things where if your team is the team who loses, it's hard to say that was a great game. If
it was a great game, though.
Right. If your team's the one that wins, you sit back and say, oh, that was a great game. And it was a great game. I mean, that's how baseball is supposed to be played, where guys are going up there trying to make contact. I mean, I didn't think either team, I always talk about the 3 outcome at bat, which is what baseball has turned into, which is just so obnoxious, which is either a home run,
strikeout,
a strikeout, or a walk. And Vanderbilt does not play that way. Thank goodness they don't play that way. And I'm watching it, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, these teams are just trying to barrel me because there wasn't a lot of scoring. It was a pitcher's duel. I mean, it was a great game. But that's the thin line here between winning and losing. I mean, this is not the NBA where we pretty much know who the best team is every single time. It's kind of like the Brooklyn thing. If Brooklyn wins against the Bucks, Brooklyn probably wins the NBA championship this year. Brooklyn probably wins it next year. But Kyrie Irving was hurt. James Harden wasn't the same kind of player because he was also hurt. KD couldn't find a way in overtime to win. They're out. It's a thin line. And in baseball, college baseball, it's even closer. I don't think Vanderbilt limped into the tournament. I think Vanderbilt's very good. I think the thing people have to understand about college baseball, and this could be just baseball in general, but especially college baseball, I think the NFL is kind of like this too, is just because you win a championship one year does not mean that other years you aren't equally as good or better. Vanderbilt in 2007, Vanderbilt was the best team in the country. They didn't make it past the regional. Vanderbilt in 2014 played a game against a very competitive Louisville team, beat them in the first round because they got one big hit from Dansby Swanson, and then they beat Texas in the next game in extra innings. They ended up winning the national title. The next year, Vanderbilt brings back a lot of the same guys. They beat Virginia in the championship. The next year, they lose to Virginia in the championship. It is very close. So I could not agree less. I could not agree less with the texter that I don't think Vanderbilt, I don't think Vanderbilt is limping into this thing.
Are they the best team? They could be. I don't know. But to say that they limped their way, and I think is a bit of a stretch, I think that I would have been shocked, and I think a lot of people would have been shocked if Vanderbilt hadn't made their way to Omaha. So I mean, they very much so should be in there.
The 2 best teams, the 2 highest seeds still remaining, are playing an elimination game at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
The number 1 team in the country didn't make it to Omaha.
And they lost to this team.
Right.
And so I know what limping in is. The Mike Mularkey Titans, that got into the playoffs at 9-7 and knocked off Kansas City and went to New England and got housed. That was a team that limped into the playoffs. That team got in there, and, how they won a game, I'll never know. But that team got in there. They won a game on their way. That's limping into the playoffs. This Predators team was never good enough to compete. I mean, Vanderbilt lost 1-0. Their starter threw 15 strikeouts last night. And you could make the argument that the Predators had all those overtime games against Carolina, but that's the first round. This is the College World Series. Vanderbilt's already won a game in the College World Series. And again, to discuss how thin the margin for error is, they won the first game in extra innings. That's college baseball. It's hard. Like, it is not an easy sport. And I keep trying to highlight that because I hear people get so fired up, especially the Tennessee fans before this thing, that were like, we're going to Omaha and we're going to win it. Like, whoa. It's not that easy. Texas is threatening up 6-4. Tony Vitello has gone to the bullpen to take Hundley out, and I think he had some words for the umpires on his way out there. I mean, he needs to cool it. He needs to cool it. I mean, seriously, like, I would say this. I've never been an umpire before, but I used to work with a high-level college umpire, a guy that would be umpiring the World Series. I don't know if he still does it or not. But I'm telling you right now that if I told Vitello that's enough, I'd make sure everybody knows, if I was umpiring, when I say that's enough, that's enough. And if I hear something else, you're gone. I don't care if it's the College World Series. I don't care. I mean, if we can have a kid accidentally hit a kid in college football with his helmet and be kicked out of the first half of the next game because of it, then we can throw the coach out for arguing 15 times. So if I'm the umpire and I tell Tony Vitello, hey, cool it, like, that's enough. It's 7-4 Texas right now. Runners first and third, 2 outs. Patrick Walsh in for the Vols. This looks like the game's kind of teetering right now. And if Texas gets a big hit here, it could be a lot of trouble for Tennessee. 615-737-1025. Speaking of a lot of trouble, there's somebody who I think got in a lot of trouble. And if it's real trouble, then I think it has a big impact on the Titans, though it has nothing in theory to do with the Titans. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. We will keep you updated. The Vols at TD Ameritrade Park in Omaha, trailing Texas 7-4. As that game is continuing along, somehow Tony Vitello has not gotten kicked out of the game, though he has tried so far to get himself kicked out of the game. Big inning upcoming for the Vols in what looks like a slugfest out in Omaha. So I see stories every now and then, and when I worked in the news, and people don't know this because I didn't spend a long time doing it, nor do I talk about it very often, but I actually got my career started as a news anchor.
I did not know that.
People don't know that. Now, when I say news anchor, you think TV.
Uh-huh.
But it's radio.
Okay.
So I host a show called AM New Hampshire every day at 6 o'clock, and it's from 6 to 10. But it was all like just reading the news. There would be this website where all the headlines would be. Then we'd look through like 5 websites, figure out what the top stories were, and then it'd be like, good morning, it's AM New Hampshire. I'm Jared Stillman. The latest, a 3-car crash at such and such. And
Traffic reporter Jared.
the one thing I used to always tell people was you become desensitized to the news. Because even though it's a sad story that there was a 3-car accident and a mom died and the 2 kids are on life support at the ICU,
That is very sad.
you read that stuff every day. And you're literally just going to a website, you're just clicking it, and then just reading it. Like that's all I did. But you become very desensitized. Bob Mueller has been at Channel 2 for, I don't know, 100 years. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, you laughed at me like I'm exaggerating. Like, I'm telling you, Bob Mueller and his mustache have been on Channel 2 for literally 100 years. I am 31 years old, and I do not remember watching News 2 at any point in time where Bob Mueller or Neil Orn were not on there. But if you were to tell Bob Mueller that something bad happened, I don't think it would faze Bob because he's seen a lot of this in his life. So I read a story today on ESPN.com, and the headline is, Kansas City Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark arrested in L.A. on suspicion of having concealed gun in vehicle. Now, how many times have we read about an NFL player having a gun?
A lot.
Okay. How many times have we read about an NFL player doing something that if one of us did it, we'd be like, oh, God, I can't believe that I did that. Oh, my God, I'm in so much trouble. I got to get a lawyer. And it just is like, that's the NFL.
Right.
So I'm reading the story. Kansas City Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark was arrested in Los Angeles after police saw a submachine gun in his car, police said Monday. Okay, that's different. A submachine gun? Clark was pulled over for a vehicle violation south of downtown Los Angeles at about 9:20 p.m. Sunday, LAPD Public Information Officer Tony M. said. Officers noticed a bag with an Uzi sticking out in plain sight in the car, M said. Clark was then arrested on suspicion of having a concealed firearm in the vehicle. He was booked into the L.A. County Jail and released Monday afternoon on $35,000 bond, according to the website. The NFL said that it'll be reviewed, that kind of stuff. Clark's attorney said the gun belonged to Clark's bodyguard. Clark was also arrested in March along with another man when officers said they found 2 loaded firearms in their vehicle after a traffic stop, the Kansas City Star reported, citing California Highway Patrol records. Now, I've always remembered that Frank Clark was kind of a sketchy guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when Seattle's a team that takes on sketchy guys. Kansas City is a team that takes on sketchy guys. Dallas, the Raiders. Like, the Titans don't love taking on the sketchy guys. I know.
They like injured guys more.
They love injured guys. They don't love the sketchy guys. I know that they're probably furious still with Rashad Weaver about that situation. But I go back to this Frank Clark thing. Is this real trouble? Like, is this like a real story? Like, because when Kareem Hunt kicked the woman in the face, that was a real story because he got cut. But when Tyreek Hill had all of his problems, and whether or not what was it, like a video recorded by his wife or girlfriend that he was beating up his kids? And like Hill basically admitted to it in the video. And then they did an investigation, and the investigation said he didn't, or somebody recanted, or I don't remember the details on that.
It was a messy story.
But I remember hearing that thinking, oh, he's done. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not going to play anymore. And he did. And that year in the AFC Championship game, there's Tyreek Hill, and I'm in the stadium, 70,000 people all cheering for Tyreek Hill. So my question with this Frank Clark story is this a real story in terms of there being actual discipline and legitimate ramifications? Or is this just another story we read? Just an NFL player had a gun, submachine gun, Uzi sticking out of a bag. Like, I know this. If Jared Stillman got caught with a submachine gun sticking out of a bag in my car, like, I would assume my life's over at that point.
See, so I know close to nothing about guns. Did a little bit of research on this. It is not illegal to own an Uzi. In California, if you are driving around with a gun...
Which has probably the strictest laws in America as far as guns are concerned.
Illinois actually has the strictest gun laws in the country, but California is very high up there. They have very strict gun laws. If you are to drive around with a gun in your car, it needs to be concealed and locked. So that was the problem here, was that you cannot conceal carry in California, and that's what he was doing, was concealed carry. It would have been totally legal, no problems whatsoever, if it was in a box that was under lock and key.
So it sounds like it's not going to be a story that affects the NFL season. Like when
I don't
Plaxico
think
Burress,
so.
Like when Plaxico Burress
When he shot himself in the leg?
and went to jail?
Yeah.
Like that affects the season.
Yes.
And I will say this. This is why I care. Because I already know the text line's going to get flooded with people that are either against guns completely or totally for guns and are like, it shouldn't be a law. We should have the right to bear arms to carry. Okay, well, that's not what I'm talking about here.
Whatever you think should happen, that's not the law in California.
I am talking about whether or not this guy's going to play football this season. That's what I'm talking about here.
I think he will.
If Frank Clark is not on the field for the Chiefs, that is a game changer in my opinion. Like that is something where when we talk about are the Titans contenders, I have a hard time looking at the Titans as contenders because I think about Kansas City. And I asked Jason Anderson when he came on the show, the host in Kansas City, I asked Jason Anderson, do you think that if we go back to that AFC Championship game and Julio Jones is on the field in place of Corey Davis, that it makes a difference? And he was like, it makes a difference, but does it make a difference to where the Titans beat the Chiefs? Probably not. Frank Clark might have been the best player in that game that day. And that's saying something because Mahomes was awesome. Frank Clark was dominant in that game. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he was matched up against Lawan for most of the game, and he just ate his lunch. Clark was unbelievable in stopping Derrick Henry in that game. Clark got into the backfield. I've had people tell me Frank Clark has been a humongous disappointment because I know what kind of organization they are, and I know what they value, and more importantly, I know what they don't value. I don't expect Kansas City, the organization that has Tyreek Hill and, Le'Veon Bell last year and LaShawn McCoy. I don't expect Kansas City to dump Frank Clark over this. Just like I wouldn't expect Seattle to do it. I wouldn't expect the Cowboys to do it. I wouldn't expect the Raiders to do it. I wouldn't expect the Jets to do it. But if they do, and again, these are two gun charges that seem to be pretty close together. Mm-hmm. If they do, or if the league suspends Clark, or if he goes to jail, I think Titans have a much better shot at beating Kansas City. When you think of Julio Jones on the field for the Titans and Frank Clark off the field for Kansas City. But to your point, I keep going back to, do we think this is like an actual legitimate news story that will affect the game? Like Michael Vick dogfighting affected the game. Mm-hmm. Or do we think this is the typical, this player did this, people will look at it today and say, oh my God, a submachine Uzi sitting in the front seat in a bag? And then tomorrow nobody will care and we'll just get right on. In week one, here's Frank Clark going out there playing football.
I think it'll be more toward the latter. Now, if Frank Clark, hypothetically speaking, would have taken that gun and went into a gas station and robbed people at gunpoint, okay, there you go. That's changing the game. Sure. He's done.
Like if you kill somebody, it's at a different
You're
level.
going to prison and you will not play football again. This, it sounds like, did he break the law? Yes, he broke the law. Did he go to jail? Yes, he went to jail. However, I don't think it's going to be a game-changing crime where Frank Clark will have serious repercussions. I think that he did something wrong. He did something against the law in a state with very strict gun laws. He didn't hurt anyone. He's out of jail. He posted bail. I don't think it's going to have serious repercussions. Now, if more things come out, I'm more than happy to, eat my words on that one. But with the information that we have now and with some of the research that I did today, I don't think that it will be a big deal.
Are you buying the fact that he believed, or that the story that it was the bodyguard's gun?
No.
I kind of buy it.
But also, like, why does it matter whose gun it was?
Well, who's it registered to? Like, that's the important thing, right?
I'm sure they can find that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, like, that's probably a big deal. But again, I mean, I don't want to turn this into like a gun thing, because the second you start turning this into a gun thing, it becomes like a whole it's just something I just don't want to deal with.
Right.
But I keep looking at the football element, and it's weird because I remember when the Aaron Hernandez story first happened, and the issue at the beginning was that the police were looking for a car that had been rented by Aaron and was involved in a murder. Mm-hmm. Not Aaron was going to be charged of murder. It was they were looking for the car that had been rented by Aaron that was involved in a murder. And we hear stuff like this all the time. Like even, what's his name? Janoris Jenkins. Mm-hmm. A guy died at his house, and his brother was a person of interest.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just such a crazy story.
Right. But those kind of things happen. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, Aaron Hernandez is arrested for murder. We find out he's some kind of serial killer. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how to follow this, but I'm just saying from the football element of it, I know Kansas City's not going to get rid of this guy. Kansas City knew what they were doing when they brought this guy in. Do you have a problem with playing football that way? Do you have a problem going out and getting the bad guys?
It depends on what you define bad guy.
The Tyreek Hills, the Frank Clark.
Tyreek Hill I have a bit of a problem with.
I mean, Frank Clark
he beat his wife and children. Or girlfriend and children, whoever it was.
Well, I think it was originally he beat his pregnant girlfriend, and that's why he got kicked out of Oklahoma State. And then the girlfriend, now that the kid's an adult, took a video of him, basically saying, your kid's terrified of you, and him being you should be terrified of me. I think, and again, this is all off the top of my head.
See, I have a problem with that. Guys smoking weed, I don't have a problem with
Honey Badger's on that team, and I don't have an issue with it.
If you, and also I have a problem with players who repeatedly have very bad behavior. Isaiah Wilson, for example, I have a problem with that. Guys who have run-ins with the law, guys who are, caught driving too fast, I think that there are definitely layers to this. I think that if players beat their children, I have an issue with cheering for that person and buying jerseys with their name on the back of it.
Sure, but Kansas City fans do not.
Yes, because he's a good football player, and I don't think that just because you're a good football player that excuses you from the law.
But if the Titans were to go out and recruit this kind of roster, would you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Would you literally say, I hate the Titans because they're going out there and they're getting all of these guys that are involved in all of this bad stuff?
I wouldn't say I hate the Titans. I would say I hate the actions that some of the guys the Titans are going after have done. But I'm not a football general manager. I'm not going to tell them how to conduct their business, but I can disapprove of some of the actions that these players have done in the past.
I keep wondering, this is just me, again, if this Frank Clark thing if the Frank Clark thing, I keep wondering if this is actually going to affect football. And the more I think about it, the buzzwords Uzi, concealed, arrested, prior arrest, that's okay, this could kind of add up and this could take him, out of the game. But it probably is just, we read this story today, and there you go. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction on this, 615-737-1025. I will say this about the Chiefs. For everything they have going against them off the field with these guys they bring in, those fans do not care. And the country never seems to look at the Chiefs there go the Chiefs. The Bengals used to be like this a long time ago when they had Pac-Man and Vontaze Burfict and all those guys. And everyone would point a finger at the Bengals. No one points a finger at the Chiefs. And I wonder if it's just because Mahomes is such a likable guy that it's I can't see they're fine.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's a majority of NFL fans, casual NFL fans, that know what Tyreek Hill has done in the past.
Sure. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction. Plus, Joe Rexrode lays out who he thinks the MVP of the 2021 Titans should be. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Let me tell you about some of these great deals that we have going on. Go to thegamenashville.com and check out Nashville's best deals. You can get a $50 Bad Axe Throwing Nashville gift card for only $25. Buy one, get one free for Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon. And $10 Grain and Berry gift card for, $20 Grain and Berry gift card for only $10. Get yours now while they last at thegamenashville.com. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We're talking about the Frank Clark story with the Kansas City Chiefs. Frank Clark gets arrested, got an Uzi in the car. And somebody texted into the text line. I saw it, Caroline, and they said, you guys have gotten way too far off of sports talk. My whole preface was, is he going to miss football games because of it? I'm not sitting there saying, I think the district attorney should take the Frank Clark case and he should prosecute it under Penal Code 9785. I think it's going to affect Frank Clark on the football field. Why did I say that? Because if Frank Clark is not on the Chiefs and Julio Jones is on the Titans, I think it levels the playing field some. Is that just somebody being too sensitive?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, again,
and also, it's not like ESPN.com is the end-all, be-all of sports news, but that was the top story on ESPN.com today. The second word in ESPN is sports.
It's the guy who beat you in the AFC Championship game getting in trouble again, and they're the team that is ahead of you, directly for sure ahead of you in the AFC. People will make an argument about whether or not Buffalo is ahead of the Titans. And you can make that argument however you'd want to make it. I think I would say Buffalo is ahead of the Titans. You can make an argument for Baltimore. You can make an argument for Cleveland. But we know Kansas City's ahead of the Titans. But that's why I'm looking at this. Because, again, take Frank Clark out of that AFC Championship game. Titans may go to the Super Bowl. Titans may win the Super Bowl. So I think it is a very fair sports talk discussion. Now, again, I just asked the question. When we hear that story, to your point, first topic on ESPN.com, when we hear that story, do we think, oh, okay, this is just a normal thing that we've seen. And, we see again a guy got arrested, court date here, says he's innocent, says more will come out. His lawyer said, okay, well, or is it Aaron Hernandez? Is it Adrian Peterson? Is it Michael Vick? Is it?
No, I don't think so.
I always say there's like the difference, in terms of criminal cases. I call it the two Rays. Ray Lewis, who I don't think missed a game, and Ray Caruth, who went to jail and I believe is still in jail. And they were right around the same time. And I think Ray Caruth killed his wife or something.
Lord.
And I want to say he was a Pro Bowl receiver. And Ray Caruth, again, I can't remember, it was 25 years ago. Ray Caruth, I think, killed like the mother of his child or something. And he was found guilty. And Ray Caruth is, I think, still in jail. We know all about Ray Lewis. So is it more Ray Caruth or is it more Ray Lewis? And again, with most of the things in sports, we hear these issues that come up. People get mad about them for a day, and then it's over. And just like the Rashad Weaver thing, nobody here is talking about what's going on in the Rashad Weaver case when we were outraged the day we found out about it. Has there been an update on that? No. So, again, is this going to affect Kansas City on the football field? I think it won't. So, but again, I think that's a sports topic. What else we got in the text line? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. What else we got?
Brian texted in and said, nobody actually really cares because as a population, we've become so desensitized. I mean, take, as a population away from it, I think as sports fans, a lot of people have become desensitized. I think when you talk about these serious criminal cases, talking about murder or things of that sort, that definitely is a big deal. But I mean, look at Antonio Brown. I just opened up ESPN.com. The first headline in the NFL section is AB's probation in a battery case is terminated early. So, AB has these things against him. A lot of NFL players have had criminal charges against them. I think as NFL and sports fans, they've just become desensitized, and it's almost like, all right, another day, another minor case.
I think you have to see it or hear it. I think that for it to affect people, you have to see it or you have to hear it. Kareem Hunt, we saw the kick in the face. Mm-hmm. Ray Rice, we saw the punch. I think you have to see or hear it.
Or be personally affected by it.
Well, yeah, but who's personally affected by anything that anybody does? Like Michael Vick, that no one was personally affected by that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying hypothetically speaking.
But again, I'm talking about we as a society. If something happens to somebody, nobody's personally affected by it except for the one person that's personally affected.
Unless that's your parent or your sibling or a significant other. I think that makes you personally affected by something.
It makes you, but it doesn't make society.
No.
It doesn't make the NFL.
No.
Right, so I'm talking about us.
Okay.
So for it to affect a society, which then affects, again, remember the Ray Rice thing? Remember when Ray Rice's wife apologized at the press conference before the video came out? Ray Rice's wife apologized. The Ravens, it is still screenshotted. The Ravens tweeted out, Janae Rice apologizes, and I forget exactly what the quote is, but it was something like, Janae Rice apologizes for her role in the incident. Then we saw the Ray Rice video. Then Ray Rice got suspended. Then Ray Rice never played football again in the NFL. So you got to see it in order for it to, and again, Frank Clark is not the first guy in the NFL to be arrested for having a gun. Like I said, sometimes this feels like, every couple of months, there's a report out there about somebody having a gun, and sometimes it affects it on the football field, and sometimes it doesn't. The Giants, when the draft was here in Nashville in 2019, the Giants took DeAndre Baker, a corner out of Georgia, in the first round. And DeAndre Baker, during COVID, he and a DB that I think he's friends with or played with in college or something like that, who was with the Seahawks, they went to somebody's house, and I think it was armed burglary or something. There was some kind of gambling issue, or I don't remember. And DeAndre Baker got released on the spot by the Giants after one season, just released. Then it came out charges were dropped or charges were reduced or something like that. Guess where DeAndre Baker is right now?
Where is he?
On the Chiefs, So,
There you go.
like, that's, again, I mean, I don't know how the Frank Clark thing plays out. I have no idea. But I wonder if reading it, if this is a football thing that would affect the Titans, because, again, Kansas City is right there as far as the Titans are concerned. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Again, Joe Rexrode has laid out who he thinks the MVP of the Titans will be this upcoming season, or who it needs to be. And you would be surprised to know that I vehemently disagree with Joe's pick. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Will you try to gather with some guys in July before you come here, or what's your routine usually like to get ready?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, I try to get together with some guys at some point in July, just kind of a little refresher for a few days. You know, everyone generally tries to get away a little bit, clear your heads, clear your minds, kind of come back refreshed and ready to go for training camp. So definitely working, making sure you're in shape, staying on top of things, but a balance of clearing your head and coming back refreshed and ready to go.
That was Ryan Tannehill, who said a lot less words than the clip yesterday that we played from a year ago when he was asked whether or not he was worried about Tom Brady taking his job. But that was Ryan Tannehill. And I read Joe Rexrode in The Athletic. Apparently all the writers that cover teams had to pick a team MVP for each team. So, for example, the Jags team MVP, Andy Staples put as Brandon Linder, the center, saying that the center will need to help Trevor Lawrence. The Colts writer, Zach Kiefer, said Darius Leonard, the middle linebacker. Aaron Reese, the Texans writer, said Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle. So it's not just that obvious. Here's what Joe Rexrode wrote. Quote, the Titans would love for this to be a defensive player who rises up and transforms that side of the ball, such as the high-priced centerpiece of free agency, Bud Dupree. Or maybe Jeffrey Simmons in his third year benefiting from the addition of Danico Autry. Any of the three offensive skill stars could be the answer. Derrick Henry is still the favorite because he's still guaranteed a heavy workload and probably some lighter boxes. But the most likely answer, Joe writes, is Ryan Tannehill. First of all, very creative for Joe to go for the quarterback. He has been an effective point guard since taking over the starting job in 2019, finding the open man and rarely forcing the ball to anyone. Now he has Henry to keep creating big play action windows, 2 nightmares to cover in Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, plus capable support players in Josh Reynolds, Anthony Ferkser, and Darrington Evans. He should put up big and efficient numbers. Okay? Do you think Tannehill's going to be the team MVP this year? And do you think Tannehill should be the team MVP? Do you think it's good for the team if Tannehill puts up the MVP for the team level numbers? And not only that, is that really how this team wants to play? Is that when you add Julio Jones, is it now no longer, hey, you're the trigger man, you're our guy, but now it is, hey, go win us games?
Well, of course it's good for the team if Ryan Tannehill puts up MVP-like numbers.
No, not MVP-like numbers, but is the MVP of the team. The most valuable player of this team. Of a running team.
Yeah,
that needs somebody on defense to step it up.
I have a very hard time believing that anyone on this Titans team would be the MVP other than Derrick Henry. This is a run-first team, and I totally understand with the addition of Julio Jones that will shake some things up, that I believe that the Titans will become more of a threat in the air. But at this core, it's a running team. You have the best running back in the NFL on your team. This is a run-first team. And, of course, things need to change. I just don't think that they're going to change so drastically that Ryan Tannehill will put up just, game-changing numbers.
So I have 2 thoughts on this. First, either Tannehill already is the team's MVP because they were 2-4 when they turned it over to him and they ended up in the AFC title game. And they won the division last year with a horrific defense.
But did they win because of Ryan Tannehill?
I mean, I think you have to say yes. They couldn't win without Ryan Tannehill.
I'm going to say not no.
I mean, they needed Ryan Tannehill.
Of course they needed Ryan Tannehill. And they
got Ryan Tannehill. So either he already is the team MVP or him being the team MVP is bad for the team. But it can't be both. Like, it cannot be that this team needs to have Tannehill and he's already the MVP. And so once you're already the MVP, you're not going to be the next MVP. That's how MVPs, coaches of the year, that's how it all works. How many coaches of the year would Belichick have won if it wasn't like, well, but that's Bill Belichick? It's always like when John Fox has a team that stinks and John Fox turns them from 5-11 to 10-6 and wins a division and gets a bye and gets knocked out in the divisional round of the playoffs. John Fox is coach of the year. That's how coach of the year works. That's how MVP works. Mahomes throws one season for 50 touchdowns, league MVP, not league MVP after that. Okay. So either Tannehill's already the MVP and he can't be the MVP now, or something bad happened to the Titans. Because I can't see Tannehill at his core being a big number quarterback. I can't see that being in the best interest of the team. Him being a big, high-priced, big-time quarterback. That's just not what he does. And so we've always said the formula for Tannehill is to throw it 23 times a game and throw for 240 yards. Well, if that's who he is, and then you get him Julio Jones, then it is either, okay, Ryan Tannehill is now going to ascend from us wanting 240 yards a game to now us wanting 270, 290 yards a game. And I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if we feel that way. When I say we, I'm talking about the fans. I personally don't feel that way. I don't want to ask Tannehill to do more. I want to ask Julio Jones to be available to make big plays in big games and not get hurt all the time like the guy he replaced does. I think it's got to be somebody on defense. For this team, in order for them to achieve the level of success that they are going to need to achieve, it's got to be somebody on defense. There's got to be somebody who we watch this year and think, he's the difference. Whether it's Dupree or Autry or, to Joe's point, Byard or Simmons, to Joe's point, Simmons or Byard, whether it's one of those guys or somebody we've never heard of, and Monty Rice becomes the next Ray Lewis, it's got to be somebody on defense. Because I just think the way this team is built, when you are built with Henry and Tannehill, and no matter who you trade for, no matter how many picks you give up, no matter how much money you spend, you will always be a Henry and Tannehill team until Henry and Tannehill aren't here anymore. So if you are a Henry and Tannehill team, you're not asking your quarterback to go out and win you games. But you can't have the 29th ranked defense in the NFL. You can't win with that. So it has to be somebody on defense, because if it's not somebody on defense, then it's going to be the same lousy group. And when you run into an elite team, you will lose because that quarterback will take advantage of your defense, and that team's defense will be good enough to keep your quarterback, who can't go shot for shot with an elite quarterback, out of contention.
Well, just because you don't have a defensive player as the MVP doesn't mean that automatically you have the 29th worst defense in the league. I think there's
I don't think you go.
There's a big gap in there.
I don't think you go from 21st to 15th with holding hands and hoping everybody gets better.
But just because
you're already holding hands and hoping everybody's going to be healthy. But now you're talking about holding hands and hoping everybody gets better. And instead of you jumping up from the 29th, or I think it was 28th in total defense last year, the 28th ranked total defense in the league, instead of you going from that to 13th, it's a lot more likely that you do that because Bud Dupree racks up 14.5 sacks. It's a lot easier that you do that because the combination of Autry and Simmons is unblockable than it is the idea that everybody just figures it out. And wow, the second year in the same system, the communication is better, the continuity is a big deal. Byard is back to being an all-pro caliber player. The corners that they drafted have all worked out, including the injured guys, and it's just going to be great. That is a humongous leap of faith. That's where you need like 13 things to happen right. So it has to be one guy. If we're being realistic here, it has to be one guy that goes out there and does it for you, not the other way around.
I don't know. I think that is just kind of a bold statement, because if you say that, let's say every single guy on defense, I know that this is a bold statement. Let's say every single guy on defense takes 2 steps forward from last year. You don't think that having an entire defense that is significantly better than the previous year doesn't make you automatically a better defense? Like, just because you don't have an MVP caliber player on defense doesn't mean that you can't improve.
Yeah, but now you're holding hands and hoping that 11 people take a step forward. You said 2 steps forward. You're hoping 11 people, really more like 14 because you're going to have some injuries.
Right.
So you're hoping that 14 people take a step forward as opposed to one guy balls out.
I think that's just asking a lot from one guy.
Like, if I'm an NBA general manager, what is my best route to try to win a championship? Is it to hope that my entire team gets better every single game, that we put these guys through that we improve their fundamentals, and that we get the right pieces, and that we have the right starting lineup where everybody meshes? Or do we want to go out and get a superstar? Do we want to go out and get the one guy who all of a sudden makes Matthew Dellavedova a relevant player? Do we want to go out and get the guy?
But do you think there's the Titans can have a LeBron on defense?
I think that's the hope, is somebody's got to do something. That's what MVPs do, right? I mean, nobody would think Devin Booker right now is probably the favorite to win the MVP next year. This time last year, nobody thought that Devin Booker was better than James Harden. Nobody thought that the Phoenix Suns would get further than the Brooklyn Nets. Nobody thought Devin Booker was better than LeBron James. Nobody thought, and guess what? You need somebody to do that. That's what it's going to take. So there's somebody on this defense who's not an all-pro right now, who doesn't have 20 sacks, there's somebody on this team who hasn't done any of that. And that's what they're going to have on defense. And that's how you win the MVP. Just like when Matt Ryan, out of nowhere, threw for a bunch of touchdowns, very little interceptions, and led the league, and the Falcons were the best team, and he was league MVP. Matt Ryan has had a 15-year career. Never has he played as good as he played in 2016. Somebody's got to do that this year. Somebody on defense has got to do that, where it's like, wow, 11 sacks for Harold Landry, and that's the difference. And I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm just saying that I think that if this Titans team, it's either one or two things. Either the addition of Julio Jones allows you to become a throwing team, and that Ryan Tannehill can go out there and can get on the field at Arrowhead and look across the sidelines and say, let's go, me and you. Mm-hmm. Or your defense gets better because somebody steps up, and all of a sudden that the fact that you'd have to outscore everybody because your defense was so lousy, now is, hey, the defense can get big stops for you in big moments. And I think that it's much more likely that somebody you drafted or signed this year can do that for you on defense than it is to take Tannehill, who I don't think is good when he is trying to throw it 50 times a game.
Who would the MVP of the Titans have been last year?
For the team?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry.
He's the offensive player of the year. He was.
Yes, yeah.
But you don't win MVP 2 years in a row.
I know that. But I'm saying that would be like a unanimous kind of feeling that it would be Derrick Henry.
It would be unanimous. I mean, Tannehill would garner a lot of the votes too.
But do you, let's say, I don't expect Derrick Henry to have that same kind of season this year that they did last year. Running backs just don't do that. But you're saying that somebody needs to be Derrick Henry on defense?
I'm saying somebody needs to take over that defense. Somebody needs to be Javon Curse. The Titans were 8-8, and they had a decent defense. Mm-hmm. They drafted Javon Curse as a rookie, 14.5 sacks, into the Pro Bowl, into the Super Bowl. Now you've got the best defense in the league. That's what, I mean, again, you're not going to go from where the 98 Oilers were to best defense in the league.
Right.
But you're going to go from 28th to 14th. And that's what you have to have happen. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Plus, we'll get an update with Caroline as well. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman & Company. Not looking good for the Vols, although this pitch hit to center field. That's probably going to end the 7th inning. The Vols have 6 outs to play. They're down by 4. Texas 8, Tennessee 4 in an elimination game in Omaha. That game going to the bottom of the 7th. It's time to stretch there. It's Stillman & Company on ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman & Company, delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. Nashville SC fans join ESPN 94.9 this Monday from 7 to 8 for NSC Backstage featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. Monday's special guest will be Coach Gary Smith. Watch the show on 1025 The Game's online via 1025 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TheGameNashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. Vols are down 8-4 in the bottom of the seventh. We'll have full reaction when that game is final, but it is not looking good for the Vols in Omaha. Not looking good for Vanderbilt in Omaha either, but that's a different story. Let's go to your phones, though. As promised, Calvin is going to kick us off. Thank you for calling the show. Go ahead, Calvin.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Just driving down the road, man. I tell you what, the two players I'm going to be watching like a hawk this year are Taylor Lewan and Kevin Byard. And you were just speaking on we need that defensive player like Javon Curtis back in '99. And, man, it's crazy to think, but Kevin Byard, he had, 7 or 8 picks, in 2017? It's hard to remember, man. And I know he didn't show up at all last year to me, but if you could speak on that, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your call, Calvin. I think there's two separate issues here. One is there's Lewan in the fact that I think he's playing for his career. And I don't mean he's playing like that he's out of the league if he gets hurt again but you're either a $15 million a year, high-priced Pro Bowl guy, or you're not. And so take Eric Fisher, who was the number 1 overall pick in the draft, the left tackle of the Chiefs for about 8 or 9 years, tears his Achilles, misses the Super Bowl. Now he's, I think, a 1-year deal with the Colts, and he's going to start playing in September of this year, and it's a 1-year prove-it. And when you're on a 1-year prove-it, you're not a top-of-the-league guy anymore. So I think Lewan is dealing with that. Byard is a really interesting topic. And it's a really interesting topic that people don't talk much about. And it's because they like Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is a good dude. Kevin Byard cares about the community. Kevin Byard is somewhat of a local product because he went to MTSU. Kevin Byard was a star at the beginning of his tenure. He gives great interviews. He accepts responsibility when he doesn't play well. Kevin Byard is, without knowing, I know him, but I don't know him that well. Kevin Byard is what you would, if you had a kid on the Titans, you'd want him to be like Kevin Byard. He stunk last year. And the why of why he was so bad last year has got to be discussed at some point. And the reason that I say it has to be discussed is because here was Kevin Byard, who for 3 or 4 years was one of the top safeties in the NFL. Even when he wasn't getting the picks, he was still one of the better safeties in the NFL. You could depend on Kevin Byard to make a play. And last year, he was just terrible. So was it COVID and the fact that he couldn't work out like normal? Was it Shane Bowen and that Bowen made everybody else worse last year? And that now they've brought in Jim Schwartz to make sure that that doesn't happen again? Was it everybody else sucked so bad and the pass rush was so terrible that even Ronnie Lott and Deion Sanders back there wouldn't have made a difference and that's why Byard got exposed? Was it the lack of Logan Ryan as the veteran guy who had been there and done that perhaps the DBs weren't seeing the same things anymore because they didn't have a Logan Ryan back there? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if the Titans know the answer to that. And I know if they do, nobody's talking about it. But they paid Byard a lot of money, and he was bad last year. I mean, he was not. When we think of Byard and we think of him as a good player,